Welcome to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda. Now, for those of you listening on the radio, this might not make a lot of sense, but for those of you watching on video, I often get comments from people about some of the backgrounds, the stuff that you see behind me while I'm sharing these messages. And one of the little wooden things behind me, people might wonder what it is because you can't see it from back there, but it's actually hand carved. It's the sheet music and the words to the hymn, The Old Rugged Cross, it was actually produced in an Amish community in the United States. But that old hymn, The Old Rugged Cross, describes the cross as being the emblem of suffering and shame. And in Western society, we often place much more emphasis upon the suffering of the cross than we do upon the shame. In Middle Eastern cultures and Far Eastern cultures, the idea of carrying shame would be a very powerful one. In Western society, not so much. In fact, some people would say we have become shameless. For example, the movie The Passion of the Christ concentrated very much on the physical suffering that Jesus bore on the cross, not so much on the whole shame aspect of it. And yet shame still is a very powerful force in people's lives. In recent times in Ireland, we have actually seen executives in 2 major charities being investigated and actually taking their own lives because presumably they couldn't handle the shame of their actions being exposed. Now, imagine carrying a shame that is too heavy to carry. Think about the time you felt most ashamed and then reflect on the fact that Jesus carried that shame to the cross. The shame of those caught embezzling from a charity that's supposed to help people in the developing world. That shame, horrible as it must feel, Jesus took it upon his shoulders when he was on the cross. He felt that shame. You know, I've always thought that must have been absolutely devastating because as the incarnate Son of God, he was sinless. He had never had ever to feel ashamed. But on the cross, he bore our shame. I can think of times in my life when I felt ashamed of things I've said and things I've done. Remember when I was at college, there was a group of us, and we were standing in a corridor one day, and we began talking about one of the other students. And then he suddenly appeared out of a door behind us and had heard everything we'd said. And I have to say, we just all looked at each other and we felt totally ashamed. I can still remember that feeling. We knew we shouldn't have been talking like that, and we had to go and ask his forgiveness. Well, I think of the shame that we felt at that moment, and Jesus carried that shame. Jesus carried the shame of the child abuser that has been caught. Jesus carried the shame of the Nazi war criminal who has been living undetected in another country for many decades, and then suddenly his misdeeds, his crimes are suddenly exposed and announced to the world. You know, just to carry our own shame is something that's too great a burden for some of us. And to know that Jesus carried all of our shame to the cross makes Calvary seem even more wonderful to me, not just because of him carrying the physical suffering, but because he also carried our shame. As George Bernard, the songwriter of The Old Rugged Cross said, it is the emblem of suffering and shame. And today I believe we should have a profound gratitude that Jesus carried our shame so we would not have to feel ashamed anymore, because we are free and we are forgiven and we are justified just as if we'd never sinned. Today, may we walk in that freedom from sin and freedom from shame because of what Jesus did for us on the cross. God bless you And please join us again tomorrow for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda.